Of course, a lot of credit for that also needs to go to our tyre supplier Michelin. Luca Marini's record-busting 151.762, putting him on pole. But what is going to be the tyre choice for the sprint and, crucially, for tomorrow night's Grand Prix? Well, one man is always in the know, and putting him on the spot, as always, is Simon Craypole, joining Michelin Motorsport manager Piero Taramasso. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Piero. Yesterday evening, listening to riders, there was a lot of talk about lack of grip and also tyre consumption. The grip has come a lot better today. Like Matt's just been saying, astonishing lap times. What about tyre consumption? What do you think's going to be the choice for this evening's sprint?
Yes, we don't expect high tyre consumption, so this parameter will be under control. About tyre choice is more the front that riders they don't know exactly. But now the track temperature is 27 degrees, so it's the crossover point in between the soft and the hard. So probably we will see mix of that. So some with the soft, because with the soft you have a better turn-in, better edge grip. With the hard you have better braking stability. So the harder braking guys, they will go with the hard. Other riders, they need more feeling, they will go with the soft in the front. About the rear, the majority, they will be with the hard because it's more consistent, a good grip, a good warm-up, and some the medium. But the soft, no, because the soft we saw on the left side was dropping quite a lot.
Thank you and best of luck.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Piero Taramasso. So the pit lane will be open very, very shortly as Jorge Martin, who has been the sprint superstar, hasn't he, in 2023. Martin, 12 sprint podiums, one behind the 13 that's gone the way of the world champion. Jorge Martin has 3 more sprint wins than Bagnaia in 2023. That's where he's made big gains on Super Saturdays, and he'd love to beat Bagnaia again this evening, just to claw back a few points. 14 adrift of the Italian going into this 11-lap T-shirt sprint. And of course, regardless of what does happen, if Martin does win this 11-lapper and Bagnaia, we hope for his sake it doesn't happen, that he doesn't finish, well, it will still mean Bagnaia will be the MotoGP World Championship leader going into tomorrow night's Qatar Grand Prix. If Bagnaia scores 23 points more than Martin over the next 24 hours or so, well, it'd be great news for Ducati and great news for the Italian, because it will mean he's successfully defended the MotoGP crown, although that is a big ass, Lewis, when you think that that points gap between Martin and Bagnaia has only happened once so far this season. That was all the way back at round 1 in Portimao.
I mean, you consider last weekend that they effectively cancelled each other out with only 1 point difference between the two. Martin was able to gain a couple of points in the Tissot sprint, but then lost 3 back again to Bagnaia in the race itself. That is a tall order. Jorge Martin hasn't exactly been a picture of calm this weekend, has he? Hasn't looked a straightforward weekend, to put it mildly. We saw him with all sorts of animated discussions and gesticulations in the Prima Pramac box last night, to the point that he refused to go back out on track again until a soft rear tyre was put in. And he'll be hoping, I think, for some words of wisdom from the gentleman on your left, Gino Borsoy, who knows all about challenging for world championships, potentially trying to keep Martin calm ahead of the 11 laps that lie in store.
Oh, I'd love to be here in that conversation between factory Ducati boss Gigi Ligna and Prima Pramac racing boss Gino Borsoy. This is going to be a very tense grid indeed. There are just 12 points at stake. It feels like a lot more. We've got the live heart rate monitor back on Davide Tardozzi. I don't think it's going to be 101 beats per minute in about 20 minutes time or so, when we're going to be well into that 11-lap Tissot sprint coming up very, very shortly, as we see the riders in a bit of fuel-saving mode. Actually, just in the background there, out of your picture now, on the LCO Honda Castrol machine, replacing the injured Alex Rins last time out in Malaysia and this weekend in Qatar. We're hoping the Spaniard Rins, the Kota Grand Prix, will be back in action for a Honda farewell in Valencia. Well, you might have seen earlier on today in Q1, right at the end, a very incensed Malaysian Grand Prix with Enea Bastianini on a real hot lap, and the closing speed between his factory Ducati and Lecuona's RC213V was pretty scary. Cruising on the line, Iker Lecuona, well, he has a 3-place grid penalty for tomorrow night's full Qatar Grand Prix. That was another pretty controversial moment in the early part of this Super Saturday.
Although, funnily enough, he'll only actually relegate him one place on the grid because the only rider behind him was his teammate Take Nakagami in qualifying earlier on this afternoon. It's been a rotten weekend on the whole for Hondas. At the end of the first practice session yesterday, Hondas were in each of the bottom 4 places in practice, and they filled the bottom 3 places in qualifying earlier on today. The only outlier was none other than Marc Marquez, who used some handy tactics once again to put himself on the front of that third row. He's the fastest non-Ducati on the grid.
So Jorge Martin, 14 points off the summit of this year's MotoGP World Championship, only the second time in the last 8 Grand Prix he's found himself starting off the front row. The last time that happened was in Mandalika, where he made that sensational start from 6 to lead and win the sprint. He'd love for history to repeat itself here tonight under the night lights in Qatar. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts, I'm sure, from a very pensive Prima Ducati boss, Gino Borsoi, who joins Simon.
Gino, we've seen over the weekend so far, Jorge not always been comfortable out there, but we know what a racer he is when the lights go out. I'm wondering if you think he's got comfortable enough with settings, etc., going into the sprint.
Well, I hope when the light go on, he can go fast, because yesterday we get a really tough day. We were in trouble with the tire, but today we were able to fix some issue, and I think right now everything could be under control.
Gino, in this tough time, I want to say thank you for giving us your time. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Gino Borsoi. The one thing that has been a real Achilles heel this weekend so far for Martin has been practice starts. He's really suffered, and he was obviously explaining to even G. Delaney came down to Prima Ducati garage to get some thoughts from Martin. We're going to keep a very close eye on his launch away from that middle of the second row.
Luca Marini starts on pole position then for the second time this year from Fabio Di Gianantonio and Alex Marquez. Pecco Bagnaia, Jorge Martin and Johan Zarco make up an all Ducati top 6. All 3 of them on that second row, including our 2 title contenders, going for the hard front and hard rear combination. Marc Marquez is 7th from Maverick Vinales, and Ralph Fernandez, Alicia Spargaro completes that top 10.
Yeah, Brad Binder in 11th place ahead of Augusto Fernandez. Marco Bezzecchi's had a tough weekend. Let's go, though, down back onto the grid. We've heard from one title contending team, Prima Racing. Well, let's hear from another. We know that heart rate monitor is going to be going up, don't we, over the course of this Tissot sprint. Let's get some thoughts from Ducati Lenovo team manager Davide Tardozzi, who joins Simon.
He does. Davide, there's some fantastic young Ducati riders on the front row, but at this stage, we have to talk about the championship contenders, and Pecco has looked pretty in control so far this weekend, and not on the front row, but it looks like everything's going to plan. Can you tell us if it is?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that he can do a good race. Martin will be fast for sure, but you know, the goal of this race and tomorrow race is to be just in front of Martin and gain some points. A bit worried about temperature and the tire choice, because we are quite forced to go with the hard front tire, and with this temperature that drop during the race, that will drop during the race, for sure corner 2 and corner 15 will be something to take care and handle with care.
Davide, you always have a good insight of what's happening, who's got the pace before the sprint, but this has been very difficult to see because of such short runs and track conditions changing so quickly. Can you give us your thoughts on who will be there?
Yeah, I think that it will be many riders mainly in the first 2-3 laps, because I think that mainly the rear tire has to go in at the right temperature. But then I think that all the first 2 rows will be there. First 2 rows will be there to fight for the podium. Then we'll see who from the back, maybe the Aprilias and the Marquez, but it's very difficult to forecast the podium this time.
Thank you, Davide.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Davide Tardozzi. We just saw there then, in the middle of that front row, Fabio Di Gianantonio still without a ride. No seat at the moment in 2024 for the 25-hour challenge. The second front row start in MotoGP. He's the 14th different rider now to have qualified on the front row this year. And it means now that the only Ducati that's not started from the front row so far this season is now Australian Grand Prix winner Johan Zarco.
Maverick Vinales lines up in 8th place. I have to say, if you'd asked me 24 hours ago, or told me that the first Aprilia on the grid would be 8th after how they went last night, I would have been very, very surprised. In the lower grip conditions earlier on in the weekend, the Aprilias were very competitive. As the weekend has gone on, the Aprilias have slipped out of contention a little bit. I have to say, I was surprised that the first of those would be so far back on the grid.
Without any question, without any shadow of a doubt, under the night lights here in Qatar, this is the most nervous, the most apprehensive we've seen Jorge Martin at any point in this 2023 season. Of course, this is, without question, the biggest 8 days of his life, not just of his Grand Prix racing career. He knows what's at stake. History beckons. He's cracking a little bit of a smile there just to try and ease some of the pre-sprint tension, but we could see him a few months ago. He was taking big swallows. It was like he was trying to overcome a bit of a dry mouth, as we mentioned. This is the prize that every rider on this grid dreams of since they're 3 or 4 years old, since they're first throwing their legs over a motorcycle. Jorge Martin has come to the battle to win MotoGP the hard way. It has not been an easy route to glory for him. He knows, he senses that this is a golden opportunity to deny Pecco Bagnaia a successful defence of the championship. He has a look over to his left, a little peek, a little glance to the man that he's going to be desperate to beat in this 11-lap sprint to try and make some big inroads into that 14-point lead that this man has. He's shown why he's carrying that number 1 plate. That 9th double podium last time out in Sepang. 6 Grand Prix wins and 13 podiums in 17. Hasn't finished lower than 3rd in the last 5 Grand Prix since India. He's having a phenomenal season, this Pecco Bagnaia, and you've got to give full credit actually to Jorge Martin to be as close as he is when we get to the business end of the championship.
Yeah, if you're judging them on body language, Pecco Bagnaia certainly looks the calmer. He's been here before, of course. Of course, won a World Championship last season, and it was a little bit of a nerve-wracking finale for him, wasn't it, on that occasion in Valencia. He'll be keen to try and avoid the similar kind of nerve-wracking scenario in a week's time. So Raul Fernandez there just a moment ago. He starts from 9th on the grid. Fastest in practice 24 hours ago. Having a very good weekend is the Spaniard, the number 25, 23 years of age, of course, starting from 9th on the grid and out-qualifying his teammate Miguel Oliveira for the 6th time in the last 7 races.
So the grid starts to clear. It's all out of their hands now. They've done all they can. They are now putting their trust, they're putting their belief into their riders. Do not discount Luca Marini as well after that sensational pole lap earlier on today. Ducati's 15th consecutive pole of this incredible 2023 season that they are experiencing, as Pecco Bagnaia tries to be the first rider in 25 years, a quarter of a century since the number 1 plate was last successfully retained in the MotoGP World Championship. That was in the old 500cc 2-stroke era. A certain Australian by the name of Mick Doohan, MotoGP legend, 5 times world champion. We're under the moon, but who is going to be over the moon at the end of this 11-lap Tissot sprint? We thought Johan Zarco's 1:52.382 to top Q1 was an incredible lap time, and then we didn't reckon with the top 3 on the grid finding 1:51s, a second inside of the previous all-time lap record, as the BMW safety car gets set to peel away at the front, trying to block out the noise, trying to block out the tension, trying to block out the nerves is Martin on the number 89 bike. In terms of his Grand Prix, he's missed the podium in 3 of the last 4, but he did win the independent team rider title last weekend in Sepang. As we get set then, the countdown now well and truly underway for this Qatar Airways Grand Prix of Qatar Tissot sprint. It's been a spectacular addition to the MotoGP format this season, and for the very first time, more history about to be made here in Qatar as we get the first Tissot sprint under the night lights. Jorge Martin then, he goes from 5th place on the grid, directly alongside his main championship rival, Pecco Bagnaia on the factory Ducati. But it's Luca Marini for the 2nd time in 5 Grand Prix. Can he gate crash the party here in Qatar? The Italian on pole.